Welcome to the West Canada Valley Board of Education meeting, October 13th, 2020. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to hear from our administration team. Mr. Broderick, you want to go first?
Sure. So we sent a letter out to parents, actually went out Friday, for a one-time change to their education plan. So if a student wanted to switch from hybrid to in-person remote to virtual, they'll be able to do that. They'll just have to have their letters of intent in by November 2nd, or they can email us their intent to change, and we'll make those changes. We have made some changes already based on extenuating circumstances, needs of the students. So far, progress report grades are being entered this Friday, October 16th, and they'll be going out to parents. Another letter was sent out to parents who did not have school tool parent portal so that they could sign up. That was sent out in mid-September. We also sent a letter out to parents of students who were in the spring driver ed for 2020. Students are actually able to finish up their driver ed class driving with their parents and observing with their parents. So we've gotten 2 of those back so far. Students will get their blue card for driving and their insurance certificate. PSATs are given this Saturday, the 17th. Mrs. Woods, myself, and Mr. Shepherdson will be proctoring those exams on Saturday. I think there's about 22 students taking the test. And our first SEP support visit from the state will be virtually on November 10th. So that's pretty much all the updates I have right now. So if there's any questions.
Do you have a lot of students changing from hybrid to virtual?
I wouldn't say a lot. So far, we've probably made, I think, 19 changes since the beginning of the school year. We have about 317 students, I think, right now in the high school and middle school. I anticipate probably another 10 or 20 changes, probably. That was a guess.
More coming or more staying?
It's kind of equal. We've had about equal, some going virtual. A lot of our special ed students or some of our at-risk students are kind of struggling doing the virtual, so we've allowed them to come back a little sooner just because, to meet their needs.
Any other questions? Mrs. Holmes.
I've had basically the same type of thing with people changing after these last 2. We've had a couple changes to the remote instruction, but I've also had some changing to the full day. So we're keeping an eye on that, along with one more change coming up here at the end of the first quarter. In addition to all that, we've continued on with everything that we started last year from EDSIP. We've got Tanya Schnabel, who's the instructional coach, has been here every Tuesday. She's working with the teachers on developing our writing curriculum. They're moving along nicely with that. She's also working this year on prioritizing the standards for ELA. We had to back up a little bit in elementary, and we did a 2-week review because we were worried about some of the standards that got missed last year. So as a result of that, we're trying to look at the curriculum and see what we can safely eliminate and what we need to focus more on. She's doing a great job working with the teachers. She's doing after school. We switched her hours so that she could work with them from 3:30 to 5, so they can still teach all day and do that as well. And we're also working with Allison Blackwell from the RIC to develop some of our remote instruction strategies. So overall, it's been pretty productive. We got a little bit of a bump in the road with the quarantines, but we're still moving along nicely.
All right, thank you. Mr. Doherty.
First thing from the special ed side of it, we have a new staff member this year. Her name was Tammy Heronshaw. She took over from Mrs. Eisenhower, who left, went over to CVA. So she's working with our 10th, 11th, 12th grade students. She came from South Carolina, came out of quarantine the day before school started, and hit the ground running. So, so far, the kids seem to be taking to her. I like her. She seems super responsible. She's She's a native from Dallas, she grew up here in the South and came back. So she seems to be doing great so far. And Bridget Kiesler is probably a name that you know from the past. She's currently filling in 6th grade for us this year with that K-12 special ed position that we're looking for, just the way that they staffed everything out. She's helping Mrs. Holmes out there right now, but we still have that position posted. We're still looking for it, still interviewing candidates as they come along. So that's about what I have for special ed. Does anybody have any questions in regards to that, what we're doing? Okay, so for the athletics, where a lot has changed since the last meeting, but I sat here and told you that we were just going to keep the schedules that we had, we were just gonna play those, and if we could add games on at the end, we were gonna do that, and of course, as soon as I say something, 2 seconds later, it changes. So the next meeting we had, everything was just reworked. We remade new divisions, which our division looks very similar to what it was before, except for Poland came in and Holland Patton came in. So what we're doing is we're playing every team in the division, this is for soccer, home and away, and then there'll be a crossover with the other division. So the teams with the best records are gonna pair off to see who the overall CSD champion is. It was the best we could do to kind of put some sort of tournament together. It's not really a tournament, but at least they'll be able to be like a league champion with the whole thing. Cross country is yet to play a game yet because the first Saturday we had to cancel, and then Mr. Capron is not here for us right now, so we've got to fill in substitute coach right now. He's sending his team through Google Classroom, their workouts. Mr. Minor goes out with them and supervises their workouts, but we do have cross country coming up this week, and they have 5 total cross country meets that they'll be running. As for the soccer games, it's going much better than I would have anticipated. All the opposing teams are coming in, they have their screening sheets filled out for me. If they don't have my lectures, they fill them out. I temp check everybody as they come in. Everybody's really been following the rules, spreading out. I'm surprised, to be honest with you, how well it's been going. I had anticipated a lot more people trying to sneak in and things like that, but we really haven't had any of that. And we had Poland here too, which was going to be our biggest crowd of the season, and it went pretty well, and everybody's adhering. That's all the guy that I had, so pretty happy with that. Also, what I told you last time was that all the winter basketball schedules were all done. They were, but those are all going to be rechanged. Like we had games with teams like Delhi, where we played in Tully before. Travel restrictions aren't going to allow that stuff, so they're going to realign those divisions. We don't know that yet. We're still trying to get through the fall here on that. Bowling and indoor track, I've yet to hear a single thing on. I have extreme hesitations about indoor track. I don't know how they're going to put 19 schools together in one dome, but that's a section run sport. They haven't told us yet. And the bowling alleys are back open now, but I haven't heard if that's going to be allowed yet to participate. I'll let you guys know as soon as that. The only other thing I really have is the Wattis Foundation. I had this on my note last time. I don't know if anybody saw it. We were approved for a grant through the Wattis Foundation. In fact, the installers came and looked at the gym today, and they're going to be installing, well, they approved us for a grant to purchase an indoor retractable batting cage. So I don't know if you've ever walked through the gym like in the springtime, but we have these big metal steel cables that run from one side of the gym to the other, and the batting cage you fold out every day for it. Gets in the way for badminton and all the other sports that they play in gym class, and they're always barking about that. So the lady from the Wattis Foundation approached us and said, what's something your school has always kind of wanted, but you've never put in the budget because there's other things? And this retractable batting cage is something that would have always been great, but it's pretty expensive, you know what I mean? It was nothing that we felt was prudent to put into the budget every year. So she said, go ahead and fill out the application. We put in the application, and they approved it right away. Got us a check for the whole thing. The installer came today. Kelly met with them after school when I was out at the soccer game, and we just got to set a day up, and they're going to do that. So basically, instead of the cables coming across the gym, we won't have that anymore. This thing will suspend, go all the way up to the roof. Like if you've ever been in a Aristides gym, they just had one put in there. Whitesboro's got one there. A lot of schools have them. So they'll be doing that. And we actually have a second grant in with them right now that we'll hear about on the 15th to see if we got approved for that. Kind of going along with the social distancing thing that we're doing here, watching the kids outside, they're throwing frisbees and orange cones. And I know what the PE teachers were going after, trying to recreate a disc golf experience, but it's tough. You get a 17-year-old think it's cool to throw an orange cone. So they told us, go ahead and put another application for, they actually have disc golf baskets. They're metal ones, but they're pretty expensive, a lot more expensive than I anticipated. So we put in for that. that goes through, we could potentially set up our own little 9-hole course for the kids to use during PE. So next meeting, I will know about that one for you guys. The only thing I have to ask you is, we were approached by the Center State Conference to host the cross-country league meet. We potentially be looking at anywhere from 12 to 14 schools coming in here in one day. The plan would be to bring 2 schools in at a time. It would be an all-day affair. It would be from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. Do it that way. Bring them in. I would have them pull up into the loop, unload the bus. They warm up for half an hour, go out and run for half an hour, walk right back out, get on their bus and leave. Leo timing would be here. They would do all the timing just like every other cross-country meet. And then at the end, they would be able to merge all the results together and be able to crown a champion out of it. We were asked to do it because a lot of the cross-country teams run in local parks. The parks won't allow it to happen. We don't have really a great place for spectators to be here. Our course is an awesome course, but it's not super spectator friendly because it's all down in the woods. So they approached us and I said, I will possibly entertain the idea and see what everybody thinks of it. If you tell me no, we would be absolutely fine with that, but if it's something that you think we should pursue, because basically if we don't do it, nobody else is willing to do it. And the kids wouldn't have a cross-country league meet, but all the other sports aren't getting the things that they normally are either. So kind of just looking for some guidance from you guys. If we want to do it, I can put it together and we can run it. If we don't want to do it because of the risks in the way of the book, I 100% completely understand that as well.
So I have that on our agenda tonight when we get to the athletic piece.
Okay.
Thanks,
It says
Marty, for
14 to
that.
19 schools?
12 to 14 schools.
Once we get to that item, we'll discuss that a little bit
Sorry,
more.
I got down there.
No, that's great. That's perfect intro. I needed you to do it now, so we can talk about it after. Good to go.
No spectators?
It'd be no spectators. We wouldn't be able to clear everybody out, and as soon as you do that, then you're messing with bathrooms and, yeah, so. That's all I got.
All right, Mr. Ray.
So we're only a month in, but everything's going really smooth. Rival dismissal is great, especially with the teachers bringing the kids out. Doesn't seem to be a lot of radio traffic like before. Everything, like I said, everything as far as that's going great. Midday, we eliminated 2 buses so far for the hybrid kids going home in the middle of the day. Once the 10-week mark is here, we'll probably eliminate more. We'll start to do more regional thing. But I want to know how many kids we're going to have for the rest of the year before we do that. That's about all I got.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I go back and ask a question?
Sure.
So kids coming off from practice when there's a game, are they asked to leave or what
Yeah.
happens there?
Yeah, so 90% of them are walking straight out. There were a couple of stragglers from the boys varsity practice. They watched about the first 5 or 10 minutes of the girls soccer game and then they walked right out. So
Okay.
I was gonna go down and get them anyways, but I still had a flood of people coming in and I was temp checking and doing all their screening, but they left before I even had a chance to get down there.
So they should just leave?
Yeah, they're supposed to leave as soon as practice is over.
Okay.
Yeah, the only people that should be there are the ones that have 2 spectator passes.
Is the coach gonna trade their departure, like the boys soccer coach? Is that maybe before?
He's not leaving the forum though, he was the last one out today after they were all gone.
All right, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Me first. Jessica second, all in favor? DJ, special recognition.
Yeah, so, unfortunately, under the COVID restrictions here, this is usually a night where we spend a little time and take a break from our meeting to recognize the people seated around me here at the table. But obviously with a lot of the restrictions and the social distancing and so forth, we're not really permitted to do that tonight. But I didn't want the month to pass, especially during these challenging times, without recognizing the sick members of the board that are here, volunteering and devoting their time to the school district, to the kids here, to the staff here, and quite honestly, to the entire community that's here. I get a chance to see what they do between meetings, at meetings, the discussions we have, the questions that they have, And I truthfully can tell everybody listening out here that they care a lot about what goes on here. They care about the kids first and foremost. Our discussions are straight around what's best for them. But beyond that, they look at this whole community and take a lot of pride in what the district has to offer. I won't go through because I'll botch it with the number of years that some of these members have had on this board, different roles as president, vice president, sitting on the board. But you've got a lot of years of experience sitting up here right now, and it's been a huge help to me. And I've been here long enough now, even sitting here long enough now, I can say I've got to work with a lot of them. So I certainly appreciate all your support, like the school does, and I thank all of you.
We get a dinner for this?
What's that?
We get a dinner for this?
You gotta get something. As soon as we can take our masks off, Mr. Kemmer. Can't eat with the mask on.
Thank you, DJ. All right, motion to go into executive session for appointment of personnel matters, including review and appointment of employees and contract negotiations. Jane first. Shawna second, all in favor? Thank you. Welcome back. We're gonna do action items, our personnel report. Motion to approve Abigail Countryman, non-certified substitute teacher assistant, monitor aide per the district approved rate sheet effective October 13th, 2020. Shauna first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve Jordan Schaefer, substitute bus driver per the CSEA bargaining agreement effective October 13th, 2020. Shauna first, Peter second, all in favor? Thank you. Motion to approve Jamie Brandt, non-certified substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor aide, K through 12 per the district approved rate sheet effective October 13th, 2020. Jenny first, Shauna second, all in favor? Thank you. All right, discussion items. DJ, school year update.
Yeah, so I want to thank our principals and our supervisors for giving us a good introduction here in the beginning to sort of what's going on. But I want to kind of go off of what they talked about and talk a little bit about, what has gone well so far, what we've learned so far, and, some of the things that I want people to be aware of and so forth as we move forward here. So I think, in a lot of ways with the task we had and the amount of options that we gave, I think our instructional staff, our administrators have done a phenomenal job keeping this together. And I'll take it even a step further in the elementary with Mrs. Holmes and her staff with the two positive cases that we've had to deal with and rearrange and so forth. Where in both situations, I kind of asked them to do sort of an impossible, be closed for the day, get us cleaned up and get us back going again. And we've lost, to precautionary quarantine, a lot of students and a lot of staff that we've had to adjust to in both cases. So, I can't say enough about how we've handled those in terms of the buildings because I think we've really maximized what we could do instructionally. Some of the other things that I've been really impressed with is the digital classrooms and the improvement from last March to October. The use of them by our teachers, the kids and how they're using them. I just think we just keep getting a little bit better. It's one of those things that when you're using it all the time, you get better at it and learn new things. And I can see that with our teachers as they experiment and do more trainings and they learn new things and the kids become more comfortable. So we're using those devices right in the classroom. So even when you're here, if you were to come in and look at our classrooms, those devices are on the desk, we're using them. We're using the Google Classroom so that, in times where we can't be here, we're able to do that. We have one-to-one devices for all students. The upgrades that we had came in and handed out as late as today. So we've got really up-to-date devices for our kids and teachers. One of the things that's shown, and I'm not a science, expert, but, I got to believe some of the safety measures that we put in place have been really good so far. I'm generally a jinx, so I hate to even talk about it, but we've kind of the purpose of the safety is if we do have positive cases to try to contain that so that we don't have spread. And I think the mask use and the spacing and the way we're structuring the cohorts and things like that, I got to believe it's helped at least some in that situation. You'll see a lot of schools right now, even in the paper today, who didn't maybe start out that way or switching to that way now as they get positive cases. So I think we did a good thing with that as well. I think our communication with our parents and guardians and our communication with the Department of Health has been really good. The Department of Health communication has gotten better. We now have a liaison that we talk to there. Certainly some frustration with our parents and guardians. At times I understand that. There's frustration in a lot of situations, lack of, not understanding certain situations, but, usually once we have those conversations and talk about how sort of this all plays out when it comes to quarantining and so forth, they understand that. And the contact tracing, that's, I think we've done a good job of identifying the tracing. I think that's, we've had 50 kids this time. We had 68 the first time. Essentially we have exposure areas The exposure areas are gonna be in the classroom. If we're in the classroom with positive cases, that's gonna be a precautionary quarantine. If we're on the bus with the positive case, that's gonna be a precautionary quarantine. Any of the activities that we allow kids to participate in, if we expand that, the extracurricular we're gonna talk about tonight, the sports, that's another potential exposure area. So, the balance of the exposure areas, the cost benefit of all these things are the big thing. And we wanna run the school, we wanna be here, we wanna give what we can to the kids, but understand that the tracing kind of falls off of all that stuff. So what we've learned this far and things that we're working on, the technology at home has been challenging. We know just being in a rural area, that's challenging, but we're really working on that. Some of the hotspot, Verizon and some of those issues, we're finding we may need to add a few different hotspots to that. We're identifying some situations where when we close for a day, kids don't necessarily need the hotspot because they're here all day, but when they do have to close the building down for the day, they need it because they're home the next day. So we're adjusting to some of those things. We're identifying, who's struggling with the internet at home, who's getting interruptions, houses that have multiple children in the household. Those are issues. The hotspots work well for one. You get the 2, 3, and 4 kids in a household, you might need multiple hotspots to make that work. So we're looking into that. So, the internet needs are a key part of this. My concern, and this is kind of later on, is not only just the one-day closures, but what happens if we need longer days, and I want to make sure we're prepared for that. The tracing goes fast. We learned that, and it causes issues with instruction and staffing. In a matter of less than 24 hours, we're at 8, 9 staff members with 1 positive case and 50 plus kids. So it goes quick, and we haven't even touched the high school yet. So, you get to the high school situation where they're cohorted, the kids are cohorted for the most part, but on the same token, they have more than 1 teacher in the high school, where in the elementary, in a lot of cases, they have 1 or just a couple of teachers. So, the high school, you'll see that with other schools that have been impacted at the high school. They haven't necessarily opened right away. Clinton is closed for the week. Pathways just announced they're going to be out for a few days here. So there's a number of situations I can give, but I know why they are, because if you get impacted, that tracing domino happens quick. So, our substitute situation. So that really puts a strain. First, we're limited with our subs. We've been before this even happened, trying to get substitutes and find that. Our subs that we have are really reliable. I'm thankful for that. But once we have a case where we need for 14 days, 8 subs in the elementary, potentially, that's 8 subs off the regular list in terms of when we need. And when you're sending, it's not just kids. Sometimes we have to send staff home. Sometimes, there's a lot of things with substitutes. So we need to look at ways to get people in here to substitute. We may have to get real creative with how we do substituting here this year. You've got to be careful too in terms of how many rooms people are in and so forth as well. I talked about the hotspots, the closures, in getting the people at home set. I guess the big part of this discussion is my concerns. I can't help but feel after the first couple that we were fortunate, and it doesn't sound like we were, because some of the parents and children were affected by both of them, and I feel bad for them. We probably had 3 or 4 families that were impacted where we had kids out and then they came back and then they got caught in another quarantine. So I don't want to minimize it, but I also can see where this could get much larger in potential. I mentioned middle school, high school as a closure where there would be more staff, potentially more students, and getting to a point where, yeah, we could keep the school open, but can we staff it, and how would we do that? How would we get enough people to cover classes and so forth during that? So, I don't know what'll happen, but I definitely think we all need to be aware that there could be extended closures just due to those, depending on how far the tracing goes. The improvement of home internet service, that's things we're working on. The student referrals. The student referrals are, as we get closer, we're into October, and I can already feel, we went through a training with the Department of Health today. Any sort of symptoms at all with these kids or staff, and they need to be sent home, and it's not as simple as a note. The note's not accepted if there's no diagnosis with it. So they're out, you know, and if we're lucky, we're getting tests back in 48 hours to get them back in that quick. But in some cases, it's longer. They have to have a PCR test, which is a diagnostic test. They can't, that rapid test is fine, just it's kind of like a strep test. You get the strep when you go there and they say it's negative, but then they send it out to the lab. Same kind of thing with this. You know, you might get a negative rapid, but then once it goes to the lab, they come back positive. It depends on your viral count. So they have to have that PCR test, that diagnostic test. And that can cause gaps, and, you know, and I can understand the frustration. You know, I talk to administrators, I talk to our parents. You know, we're sending kids home. Sometimes we're sending the kids and the siblings home with them, even if they don't have symptoms. It's you know, it's a tough situation. But it is what it is right now. So in order for us to all be here, that's how it is. And I can understand there's been some parents that have switched to remote. Some of the reason for that is that, you know, they don't want to get caught in the tracing. They're like, I'm just going to go remote, then I don't need to worry about this part of it. So, and I get that, which is part of the reason we offer different things. The testing turnaround time is concerning. Sometimes they can't get into doctors. We try to get them to go to urgent care. You know, sometimes there's insurance things, you know, that cause some issues with that. You know, the test and lab time to get back, I mentioned. The 10-week changes, both of our principals mentioned that already in their transportation. We've got those out. We're going to start hearing about them. You know, what adjustments may need to be made depending on who goes remote, who comes in, how many kids we have. We only have so much space. You know, we may have to adjust what we're doing in here with those changes. And then, you know, being aware of the exposure areas. I mentioned that already. The classroom, the bus, activities that we do, sports or any extracurricular that we talk about tonight are all potential exposure areas. When I know you mentioned this before, when we first started, I thought our seating charts and our masks and things like that would impact the tracing piece. It doesn't. So we wear the mask to prevent the spread. That's the purpose of them. But in terms of tracing, if there's a positive case in a classroom, that whole classroom is gone and the teacher's gone on a precautionary quarantine. And then any other teachers that have been in that room with them and anybody who's been on that bus is gone. So, you know, we don't have huge buses, but we do have buses with 20-something kids. So that's where the real challenge comes in. When we have a teacher who goes out on a precautionary quarantine with their class, they're all out together. So they do the remote instruction together while they're out. But when you get the bus, you hit a kid in second grade, you hit a kid in fourth grade, you hit a kid in fifth grade, the rest of the class is all here. They weren't on that bus and they're home. So we're creating this dynamic where we've got a teacher in school with their class in simulcasting, that's probably an old word, you know, basically streaming that kid at home into that classroom with them and finding ways to do that. And we're doing a lot of training to help teachers with that, because that's, you know, that's 2 computers going, a document camera, a microphone, a screen. There's a lot of stuff going on to make that be effective. So, yeah, I mean, we're making it work somehow. Soul's making it work, so we're getting there. But it's caused a lot of, you know, shuffling around. I just, you know, those are the things that I'm seeing as we get into October, and we're only in October, and we're not to the, you know, we're starting to get the runny noses. We're starting to get all the things that are normal for a school year, but they're not normal this year. So we're gonna, you know, we'll see how that all works out. Any questions on any of that? I know the principals and everybody, I gave you a lot there, kind of a synopsis of what's going on here.
Are we having trouble getting substitutes?
In terms of them not, they're on our list, but they don't want to come in. Is that what you're asking, Mr. Cumler? We have some subs from the beginning that were probably of at risk that have not come in right now, and we talked to them about that in the beginning. Our regular subs do come in, and that's good for our normal situations. The problem is the quarantines cause some issues. So,
And do we have student teachers coming in? And if we do, where are they coming from?
So we have one in right now in the elementary from Casanova right now.
One in the spring.
And then we have one scheduled for the spring out of UC, or no?
Yeah,
Out of UC College, yeah.
Yeah, former spring of ours.
My concern was like, you know, if they came from Oneonta,
Yeah. No.
closed down.
Yeah.
Cortland's closed down.
So they'll follow all the protocols we have in here, but right now we don't have a lot. We are at one now, but we'll have one in the spring.
And the majority of your college kids now have to be tested weekly. Just, earlier in the week too.
Other questions about where we're at opening wise, anything that's going on?
Just for your substitutes, just me being in the classroom myself, how are you preparing your substitutes to come in with all the different?
Yeah.
I mean, are they getting like a rundown the night before they come in, or how are they, because it's different?
Yeah. So we've been fortunate that we've got a couple of people who have been able to fill some of those roles. We did a little bit with our regular substitutes and training and things like that in the beginning of the year, but it's not like working with it every day. So we do our best with that. Quite honestly, in a lot of situations, our teachers that are at home are still working. So we might bring people in and they're teaching from home and we have somebody in the room because they're on quarantine. So they're still kind of instructing through Google Classrooms and doing that, but they're doing it from home because they're on quarantines and things like that. So every situation is different, quite honestly. And then we take some people that maybe aren't as comfortable, that we don't need as much of the technology and all that, put them in those kind of places. But, that's running real slow for right now, but.
I know I had a question once before about testing,
Yeah.
and I believe one of the answers was in regards to if it was remote, they write an essay.
Yeah.
Are the students in the building, are they given that same option?
Yeah, so I think I turned that over to principals. I can talk a little bit about different options and different things. I think testing is always gonna be, especially for the full remote kids. Most of our kids are here every other day, or they're here for half a day and things like that. So we're able to manipulate testing times for when they're in person. But for the kids who are full remote, we've got to, depending on the test, we've got to come up with some different ways of monitoring that. I don't know if principals want to chime in terms of a testing situation at home, some of the ways that you might be doing that, or you can think of the way you're doing that, Mrs. Holmes.
Well, in the elementary, we went, luckily, with the 2 series that we're using and then with the modules. I had already switched over last year, so we were practicing with that. So this year we just went full blown everything. Everybody's taking it the same online. But we started that last year, so the kids are familiar with it. The only difficult area, and that's reading and math, the only difficult and tricky area is the writing, because when they're writing from home remotely, they either have to scan it in or they have to type it in, which with the little ones, that's a little bit difficult. But we're still kind of experimenting a little bit with that piece. But overall, the biggest concern obviously is that we're hoping that the parents at home know that when we say it's an assessment, they don't help. But other than that, they're all taking the same, whether they're in school, out of school, it doesn't matter. They're getting on the computers on their one-on-one device and they're taking it the same.
I'll
How
say.
does that affect state exams?
If we have state exams, my understanding is that they cannot take them from home. So we're gonna have to come up with a plan that the kids that are fully remote will have to try to get them here, or they're gonna have to opt out.
For the high school, I can give an example. Mr. Saris is giving a quiz on Friday. He is giving it to his remote kids and his in-person kids at the same time using Castle Learning. Same questions, same quiz. He's just making arrangements for them to just make sure they're signing on and they're all taking it. It's done at the same time to keep it as fair as possible and as equal as possible. As far as state testing, the state pretty much came out and said that they have no intent of doing any testing that isn't fair or that's not in person. With that being said, I don't know how they're going to have state tests if you have a school like Utica who probably will not be in person or be able to give a test. I mean, they would give the 1,100 students a global exam in January. They're going to go 100 students a good part. So they're waiting to hear from the federal government whether they're going to waive the test or not.
Do our students take the English Regents in January?
Yes.
Do they all have to take it?
We had them all take it last year. I think, I want to say 86% of them passed it in January.
But we were okay with, January was okay, and maybe this January won't be the same. If they're remote, are they going to have to come to school to take that exam?
The state has not indicated whether any of the virtual or remote kids would have to come to school. They just.
Because what I read was that the state has said there will be no remote testing, it's all in school.
No, that's correct. I heard the same thing. Yeah. But they also said that they're going to make sure it's fair and that. So I think they don't really know what's going to happen with their
Oh, they don't.
kids. So they pretty much said, you're gonna have to order your test as normal, but we'll let you know more probably in December.
So I, to just build off that, I think from Mr. Kemmler's question, the January piece, we should hear about soon. I mean, they're gonna have to make a decision on January Regencies pretty quick here.
Yeah, I think they said December 8th or something like that.
Yeah, so I would be surprised if I came back here and told you we had January Regencies. I would be surprised. I've been wrong before, but I would be surprised. Any other questions on that?
Okay, music instruction, Mrs. Bonnie.
So I'll give Mrs. Bonnie a little introduction, a little lead in here. I want to thank Mrs. Bonnie for coming in today. We've been sort of working along together since we got started here, and I want to thank her for her patience as we got through, knowing she's been great. The whole music department's been great in understanding that we're trying to open and all the things that go with opening and all the issues that we've talked about tonight. But since that time, we've also started to talk about the music department, which obviously we take a lot of pride in. We have great instructors that love to play. We have kids who want to play, want to do things. So I invited Mrs. Bonnie tonight on a couple of items, really to give kind of an overview of the whole music situation for us, but even a bit further into the musical, which usually is held in the fall, which obviously we put on hold at this point in time due to the current restrictions. So from band to chorus to musicals, I'll let you kind of take the floor here, Mrs. Bonnie, and talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Well, so thank you for letting me speak. I think we're trying to make the best of a really bad situation because of the guidelines of the 12 feet distance between students when either projecting their voice or playing an instrument. It's been kind of difficult for us, and obviously we're trying to maintain cohorts. So at the 7 through 12, for band and chorus, we divided the students into groups based on grade level, and the groups range from 3 to 10 students, and then at the same time we have students calling in from home too, so that they can be with their grade level and ability level as far as instrument and voice. So usually we meet every day, but we've split the kids into chamber ensembles, which is the small ensemble, and they're able to meet once out of 6 days, which is really tough because we're trying to get a lot done in 40 minutes, and they're also eating their lunch during that time. Unfortunately, there's no specific time given, so we pulled them out of study halls or lunch, and the kids have been wonderful. So they come, they eat their lunch, and then we play. Or sing, and we're trying to, I guess the best way to say it, we're just trying to make it a lot of fun, like a departure from their school day. And so they come and sit, and we're basically going to pick a piece for their chamber ensemble, and then the goal is to perform one piece as a full band or chorus, where we videotape the students individually and then tile them into a YouTube video, which is going to be a lot of work for us as instructors, because basically they're becoming a recording artist, and then we have to manipulate the technology in order to do that, line up the sound and the video and all that stuff. So typically before a concert we get 60 rehearsals. If I tried to get a December virtual concert together, it would be maybe 9 rehearsals. So that's probably not gonna work. So we told the kids, our goal is this concert, and there's no pressure. Like, when we feel like they're ready, that's when they're ready. Because we don't really need a specific date out there if we're going to release it, on the internet. So that's what we're working on. In each chamber ensemble, which is kind of a neat experience in itself, they're going to be picking their own piece of music to work on together. So they're going to do one big, large piece, and then one piece for their small group. And that piece, we're going to be teaching them how to rehearse themselves. So it's going to be kind of like more real world, I have my own band experience or choir. So, and they're having a lot of fun with it. It's just, the timepiece, it's a long time between. They're also getting a lesson, in addition to that. So, where, in a normal week, we would have had, 150 minutes of band, they're getting 40 minutes of band and a 20-minute lesson. So we're doing the best we can, and the kids have been wonderful about it. So that is what's happening for music. And as far as the musical, there's a really neat opportunity. The MTI, Music Theater International, released a set of shows that they're allowing people to produce remotely, which would mean rehearsing via Google Meet or Zoom, and then figuring out ways to put those songs together. The kids would record their sounds ahead of time, and then we would overlay their music, their singing, with a track of a pianist, bassist, and percussionist, and then they would act out, and we would record it via a Zoom format, and use backgrounds and costumes, and it's kind of like a Shadow Chic musical, but it would be an opportunity to just do something together. And the best part is, if we do have to go fully remote, we can still continue rehearsing the musical and putting it together even if we're at home. So it doesn't have to stop that way. And so usually it takes about 10 weeks to put the musical together. So if we were able to do that, if we were okay with that, then we would be looking at a January date for a musical.
So, I was gonna ask you that the January date for the musical, Mrs. Bonnie, have you discussed this potential opportunity with some of the kids and got their thoughts on their interest level?
Oh yeah, they're like all about it. They really, really, really want to do it, especially for some of the upperclassmen. It's, they're really into it, and I think I have in mind a show that would be a good show for them to put together that would highlight, it's good for a small cast or a large cast. So it really, we have the cast to put together a show. It would be released on a stream. It would be a specific date that we would have to release it. It would be streamed, and we would sell tickets online, and people would have to watch it during that same time frame online. So it's kind of neat. It's the best, I think, making the best out of bad situations.
In terms of going back to the concerts potentially for chorus and band and virtual concerts, would these be like small group concerts?
So we're looking at an all virtual concert.
Okay.
So it would be each ensemble, so we might do a high school concert, and it would be up there streamed to anyone who has the link, or
Okay.
not streaming, just anyone who has the link can view it.
Okay.
So it would be up there, I'd say maybe a week, so people could view it at their own leisure. It would be, like at the high school level, we have 10 small ensembles, and in the band, and I think there's 8 in the choir. So you'd have 18 small pieces and then 1 large piece. And similar for middle school.
Questions for Mrs. Bonnie at this point?
Appreciate your creativity within the music department, because like you said, it's a very abnormal year, these kids that like music and stuff, so that's great. I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, so where we're going, one of the next topics that we have on our discussion is extracurricular activities. So, as we go through, we've made some appointments. I'm looking into November's meeting. We're speaking, we've had some meetings with individual clubs. We certainly have some clubs and advisors that just probably aren't going to be able to run and function this year in some ways. And then we have some that may be able to do that, and we're continuing to work through that process. The musical piece I wanted here tonight, just to get the support for Mrs. Bonnie to move ahead with that virtual piece, so that we can start to get that organized, and then, we can make our necessary appointments in November. But that was something we wanted to get started on if she was going to be ready in January, so.
Do you have funds to do this, or what's it gonna cost you to do this?
Well, we have money set aside that we have for costumes and all that stuff, yeah.
And then do you have to buy any like licensing or anything, or is some of that being?
Yes, that goes through the district usually,
Yeah, through our arts and education
yes.
program, just through our refundable policies, so. Yeah, so in terms of finances for those kinds of things, we're good with that. Yeah, that's not really a variable for the musical between the two funds, so. As we get into, and I guess I could lead into the next discussion item here on extracurricular activities. From the very beginning here, whether it's musicals or any of the other groups that we have, International Club, jazz ensembles, ski clubs, West Canadians, those kinds of things. We're trying to put together how those would function this year if they were permitted to function. And we're having some discussions in having the advisors who have shown interest in being appointed to those positions talk about how they would run those. And that's something that I'm going to bring to you next month, depending on what we come up with and so forth with these. Certainly some of these things are there for people to do. We want to offer as much as we can to the kids. This is a tough year as it is. So we're trying to be creative and get situations where they can do things and, within our budget, and all those kinds of things are all variables with it. But, so we're really looking closely at what we could do and what we can't do here. Some of it's still unknown. So even next month, it might only be a couple of these things that we think we can move forward with. I'll use ski club as an example. I don't know if I'm going to know anything by November of whether we're going to bus kids to the ski slope for a ski club. That's a discussion item we need to have. Whether that's even permitted to go, I don't know what the rules will be for that. Another thing with whether we have parents bring. There's a number of variables to all these different clubs. Certainly we already have some that we know we're not going to be able to do. So and we've really talked to the advisors about that already. But there are a few things that I think maybe we could get creative with and provide opportunities to do some things with that. So, any other comments or questions on music or extracurricular for tonight?
Yeah,
All right.
I think it's for you to move forward.
I mean, those kids deserve something too. I mean, we have sports.
Yep.
We give it to the sports, we're gonna give it to the music
Absolutely.
and the arts.
The kids will be excited because I told them that it was okay to go ahead, that I put it online tonight, so.
Yep. You can go ahead and we'll take care of the other business as we go forward.
Thank you
Okay?
very much.
Thank you.
Athletics.
Okay, so athletics. Mr. Doherty did a great job of giving you sort of an intro into this. I'm gonna go forward and then kind of go backwards. I want to start with the winter, just because I know we're getting close to, we're in October and people will start to think about what's going to happen this winter in sports. The answer I have right now is I have no idea. We have a meeting scheduled for October 28th in Syracuse. I'll be at that meeting where there's going to be some discussion about that. There's going to be some discussion in regards to seasons and what type of season, sectionals, all those kinds of things. We're going to have a little bit of discussion about that in the next few weeks in another meeting we're in. But the key piece in all of this, before that even becomes a variable, is Albany. So right now, some of the sports we're offering in the winter are not permitted right now. So it's not open right now to say, okay, we're going to play basketball right now, or we're going to have indoor track, or we're going to have bowling, those kinds of things. So first thing that needs to happen, just like it did in the fall, is the release of what's going to happen in the winter and what's going to be permitted. And then at that point in time, we're back to that same discussion about here and what we're going to offer and what we could do in a situation. A little bit different because we're indoor for this situation, and what if any rules will be put in place. So we've talked a little bit about the outside. Mr. Doherty mentioned this already. It's worked pretty well. Right now, universally, we're running, essentially we're running a Center State Conference league schedule where we're doing some crossovers. But every team, every school that's participating right now in the Center State Conference is following the same parameters and rules. 2 tickets per player. The check-ins at the beginning that you have to present all of your check-in health information along with the passes. If we go on the road, it's the same kind of thing. And we felt really strongly, and both Mr. Doherty and I were in these meetings, that we needed to all be the same universally so that we were all following the same sort of league schedule and so forth. And right now, there's no sectional play or state play in the fall. That was dictated to us. What will happen in the winter? I don't know that answer right now. Will there be spectators? Will it be 2 per, just like it is now on the indoor? Will we have to, if there are indoor and we permit it to happen here, will we have to rope off sections so we're all separated with 2? Those kinds of things are all details. I am hoping by November 9th, I'll have a lot of detail on this at our next meeting to talk a little bit about what's being permitted, what's not, and have those discussions with us at the local level. But until we know what the state level and the section level and all that information is, we really don't have any decision-making to be made in terms of the winter sports right now. So, but I'll keep you up to date. Right now on paper, I believe, and Ed, you can correct me, winter sports is scheduled to start practice November 30th, which is a later than start date than it normally is already.
Correct.
And gameplay wouldn't be till after the first of the year.
Yes.
On paper right now. But again, nothing's really been permitted to even go forward with that right now. So that's just an idea of what time schedule you're looking at here. So like I said, hopefully by November 9th, we'll know a little bit more about that. The other piece that I wanted to talk about, Mr. Doherty gave me an introduction to, we were asked, they're trying to find something, I'll say something special for the cross-country teams in the area. They're doing some creative things with soccer, as you saw with the league. And one of the things that's kind of been a traditional thing with cross-country has been the league meet at the end of the year. And this year it's on October 30, on Halloween, October 31st. We're fortunate to have a course on our campus where other people do not have courses on their campuses. They run in parks, as Mr. Doherty said, they run all over the place. We have an on-campus course. So, nobody really, in terms of facility-wise, can host this thing except for us. So we were asked by the committee of the cross-country committee if we would have any interest in potentially hosting a cross-country meet. And Mr. Doherty, I asked Mr. Doherty to speak with the heads of the cross-country and say, have them put together a plan in terms of how this would look. And then we can review it internally, and then from that point on, if it passes that test, we can have that discussion at the board level. Obvious concerns is we're talking, Mr. Doherty, 12 to 14, you said, teams?
Yeah.
12 to 14 teams. The catch to that, to address that issue, is no more than 2 teams would be here at a time. So there'd be 2 teams run the course, they would leave, the next 2 teams would come in, and everything would be spaced accordingly so that we're in and out. There wouldn't be any spectators here. We'd have staff on for the restrooms and things like that because we'd have to make those accessible so that we can clean that. Leon Timing, which does all the track and running times in the area, would be here throughout the entire day. They would time everything. As you know, it's the same course. Everybody's running it. The times would all be put together at the end of the day. We're limited to 2 teams per event, duels only. So that's where the 2-team piece comes in. That's what they're permitting us to do. So in order to do it, as Mr. Doherty said, it would be an all-day event here where we'd have schools come in, 2 come in, run, get back on their bus, leave, no spectators, run their times on our course, and leave, and then the announcements would be made at the end of the day for that. So.
How many kids are on the team?
It varies from school to school, depending on the program. So, because that was what they were trying to get away with. They're like trying to say, we'll put Mills and Little Falls and Herkimer together because they've got under 20 kids, all 3 schools in Clinton. You know what I'm saying? But we just can't risk putting more than 2 schools here at one time. So if you did it by the numbers, you could be out here by like 1:30, but we're not even entertaining that thought because we don't want the multiple schools together. So you might have Clinton show up with 20 on their team, and New York Coast might have 3. You know what I mean? So
I thought there'd be more kids because of the lack of other sports?
We didn't see it here, Clinton is always huge for theirs, but the rosters that I just downloaded and I looked at, they don't seem to be any bigger than what they traditionally were, so.
It's all outdoors, right?
What's your take on it, Mr. Gordon? Like,
I have two parts of me. I have a part that feels for the kids and like I see seniors and we've got a great girls cross country team this year, you know what I mean? So I'm pretty confident that they can win this thing. So for that, I'm like, yeah, let's do this, let's put it together. But then the other part of me is like, I'm scared to death of being the guy that's on the news that brought 14 schools together, you know what I mean? Nobody else is willing to do it, why am I willing to do it? So I don't know, like the part of me wants to do it for the kids, but the part of me looks at it like, if all of a sudden Clint comes down here and they got 12 kids with it, and all of a sudden tested for it, then it's not the greatest look.
So I'll go to the other answer. I'm with Mr. Doherty on that. And I've mentioned this to you already a little bit in terms of caution and hesitation. But with that being said, you know, we're still limiting. So it's not 14, you know, it's still two teams against each other like we would for a regular meet at all times. We're outside. It's, you know what I mean? We're going to monitor the restrooms. I mean, I read their plan. They put it together, you know, and I can answer any questions about it. We're going to clear this place so nobody's here. We're going to make sure everything's sanitized and clean, the restrooms and so forth. We're not worried about spectators here because they're not going to be here. We're going to just let the kids get off the bus, get warmed up, give them a warm-up area where they're separated, and we're going to run the meets like we would during the regular season. And then they're going to get on their bus and they're going to head back to Clinton and New York Mills and Poland and whoever is going to come in and at their time slot run their meet and go on. You know, it's a long day here, but you know, on the same token, it does give the cross country league sort of an end of the year type event that, you know, where there's not necessarily another way to have a fair league championship.
I'm in favor of it.
because they're gonna have temp checks, just like anything.
Sure.
They're gonna do.
I-
They're
listen,
already
like anything
running
else.
against.
I would bring it to you if I wasn't confident that we could do it. Like I said, I feel better us running it than anybody else, like shipping my kids off because it's here. We can keep an eye on it. We can do what we feel is best for it. But at the same time, I don't want to do it. And you guys be like, who said you do it? You know what I mean? So,
They still have to have a screening sheet, right? They've been,
yeah. Well,
it's the same thing. just-
Everybody does the same thing. So everybody's screened by their own schools before they get here and checked off before they get here. Yep.
so even if they ride with their parents, they can't enter by themselves. They have to wait there for their boss. They get temp checked by their own coach, and they do all their screenings. And they come in together as a whole unit.
What are you gonna do if the parent drives their kid here, they can't come in?
They can't come in.
And sit in the parking lot.
Sorry.
That, you know, that'll all be clear. And we talked a little bit about that. We talked a little bit about that. The only way we can do this, I think, everybody's willing to do whatever we need to, is we can't monitor these fans in and out. So we said, you know, if you want the kids to run, we could offer a course and a system where they could run. But, you know, if you want us to monitor 12 to 14 sets of parents, and that's a little more challenging.
It's again why they came to us, because we're conducive to it here, because everybody funnels in on that one little path. It's not like they're down in the park in Clinton where, I mean, people just come out of the woods anywhere, you know what I mean? And like I said, the parents have actually been great so far, because it's as simple that if you don't follow these rules, I can't host these games for your kids. So if you break them, I have to ask your kid or tell your kid that they can't participate, you know what I mean? And that's alleviated everything right there, so.
Where do they start?
They start right at the top of the hill out back, so, you know, like where the old playground was out there. That's the start,
And they end there.
and they, yeah, so they come out of there, and then you know where the black driveway goes down into the hill? So they go down there over the hill, and they go out along West Canada, they cross over, run through the trails, and then they finish right at the same exact spot where they started at the end zone of the football field. They run up the hill through their gate there.
Basically, the only place the parents would see them would be at the beginning, at the end.
Yeah,
They're not allowed to go
Side.
Not really.
on the trail.
Yeah.
On
Nope.
track.
No, that's how it is for all of our cross-country meets. They wait and watch over the hill and see them run across.
I mean, if they want to sit in their cars and wait for the kids to come in.
There's a soccer game that day, would that be?
there's,
We
we
won't be
don't
knowing.
have any two events going, oh, there is, that moved, so that's next Wednesday. Poland.
That got moved from
Yeah.
that
They
day?
got moved, yeah.
We're not hosting any events, more than one event at a time here. It's too hard to manage. So
Do we
all of our
have
schedule.
officials? Are
For
there
cross country,
officials?
there's no officials, there's
No
timers for it.
There what?
There's timers for it.
Timers.
So they sit right at the finish line and they run it.
And we have the timers or?
We don't have this, it's a company called Leon, Chad Nailberg, that used to be our track coach here for years, he works for Leon Timing, so they do a whole
Okay, I-
setup, and then they do that there. The only thing that we have as far as that is Mr. Capron is part of the Tiger Pickers, and some of them volunteer, so what they do is they go out on the trails just to make sure that the kids go the right way and don't get lost.
The timers get paid, correct?
Yeah, that's all paid, but we don't pay for that. So for the league meet, we get billed back. So every school that goes to it, they take the total amount and they divide it between the number of schools.
And
So all 12 schools pay an equal share.
Thank you, as long as we're not picking up the whole bill.
No, and we do the same thing, so like the same day, so our custodians that are on staff that day will bill back to the league for that.
I'm not cheap, but everybody's gonna pay their way.
Yeah, perfect. It's usually a couple $100 it comes down at the end per school.
Well, they could be here longer if there's a big,
Oh, it's definitely gonna be longer, because normally you're taking a meet that's usually 3 hours and it's gonna be 10 hours.
okay?
Okay.
Need a motion?
No, you
No.
need a motion.
I don't need a motion. As long as nobody's opposed to that, I'll have Mr. Doherty move forward. Thank you.
State audit.
All right, I'll turn this over to Ms. Crossett to give you an update. You know, we mentioned before that we're currently on top of everything under a state audit. So if you want to talk a little bit, Ms. Crossett, about where we are with that.
Our state auditor has returned from surgery, so she's back working now. She was on site 2 weeks ago for half a day, making copies and looking at stuff. She will be back, I think, next week, she said, 'cause in the meantime, she's got another audit she has to finish up on, and then she'll come back to us. So this is being dragged out like a lot longer than it normally would be. She gave us the focus when she was here. They're focusing on non-payroll disbursements. Their actual question that they're looking at is to determine whether district officials ensured that non-payroll disbursements were properly audited and approved prior to payment. That's their goal for the audit. I will tell you right up front, we do have our health insurance is what triggered this question. We've paid it the same way for 19 years with multiple auditors, including our original state audit, and it was never questioned. And now that's what they're gonna be looking at, and we've already put procedures in place to correct it. Like I said, for 19 years, multiple auditors, internal auditors, external auditors, state auditors, never had a question about it. But now each auditor focuses on something different, so this one is looking at that. The way we pay our health insurance payments, which is not, I mean, it's all there. This money goes in, this money comes out, it's all right there documented. But DJ doesn't sign off on it. I don't sign off on it until after it's paid. So that's what they're questioning. That's their primary focus. Like I said, we've already put stuff into place correcting it, so it's, can't go back. So,
I got a call from the other.
did you, she said she was gonna call. I don't know if she reached out to all the board members, or, I know she said she had to talk to Sean and Jessica. Did she talk to you? Yeah. But she will be contacting all of them eventually. Any questions?
Snowplow bid.
Okay, so I included in your packet the original bid for the winter snow plowing, which was awarded to Eric Carney 2 years ago or 3? 2 years ago. If you flip to the last page of the bid document, the last sentence says, this contract may be extended for a term of 1 year by mutual agreement between the vendor and the district pending updated proof of insurance. So I had Mr. Ray and Ms. Crossick reach out to Mr. Carney to see if he was interested in extending for 1 year. He's certainly interested in maintaining this here. He has some questions about whether we could be longer with it and so forth, but really you're under restriction of your current bid for 2 options. One, you can reopen this for bid as a district, and we can get the bid ready right away and get it out there and have it rebid again for however many years you want to rebid it for. Or you can extend the contract for 1 year. The contractor is willing to extend for 1 year at a price of $12,000, which is what the bid was awarded 2 years ago. So you can approve that extension for 1 more year, and then it would go up for bid next year automatically. There wouldn't be any discussion about it. Or you can choose to say, at this point in time, we want to go out to bid and see where it goes from there, and then it's open bidding again, and we'll put the bid just like this one was put together for however many years you want to have that bid for. So that's your options here tonight in terms of the bid. I can answer any questions, or Mr. Ray or Ms. Crosshead or myself or anybody can answer questions you have about this before we make a decision on that tonight.
You're happy with what he does?
Yeah, so I'm happy with what he does. He's done a great job of keeping us clear. He's reliable.
You have to call and say you are happy.
No, he's usually here. We're good. He's got equipment that's suitable for this place. I'm not sure if you're asking me about a bid. I don't know where a bid would be. I know, anytime you open up for bid, you don't know where it's gonna go.
Normally bids usually go out 3 to 5, so if we've done 2, I would, just be in favor of extending it 1 more year. And then next year you go out for bid. That's just my.
I'm in
I didn't
favor
hear
of
exactly
extending.
what you said, what you said.
I'm
I
going
only
for
heard half
something,
of
I
it.
think
Normally
it's a good
bids.
price. I don't think you're gonna get a better price than that.
Right, normally bids, you're 3 to 5 years. This is a 2-year with 1 year extension. I'm in favor of extending it 1 more year. That's a pretty good price. And
Yeah.
next year we do have to open it back up. That's just my,
So you have, I'm fine with that.
so I do a motion.
Yeah, so this one, you'll have to motion to extend the snowplow bid by 1 year.
All right, a
Eric
motion,
Carney at an amount of $12,000, right?
okay, a motion to extend the snow plowing bid by 1 year to Eric Carney for $12,000. Carson first, Sean a second, all in favor? Thank you.
I do have a question on that. It may not be due to plowing, but I think some of the curbing needs to be looked at carefully because it's cracked. There's some that have, if you walk, I've walked parking lot, there's some big humps taken out. I think they need some, if it's been plowing, it has to be repaired. If it isn't, we need to get it fixed because it's gonna fall apart.
Take a look at it, Mr. Cooney.
Yeah.
But he's not the only one that plows too. We have our guys out there doing stuff too, so it's kind of
That's
hard.
true.
Right, it's kind of hard to
True.
say who did this.
Yeah,
It is difficult to say who did it, but I mean, I think it needs to be inspected and checked over because there are some big humps cracked and falling out.
Some of those are new, like 2 years old, right? That we.
It's not very
a little
old.
older than that, but yeah, it's new
Couple
curbing.
years old.
Mostly
I mean,
curbing's new around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since last project. Yep, we'll look into it.
All right, policy 5672.
Okay, so I do have 3 policies on the agenda tonight. I have policy, and I'll kind of go through all 3 of them with you, just if that's okay if I do it that way. 5672 is information security breach and notification. On the top of your packet, you'll see the policy from 2016, which is currently in place. And then as you flip through your packet, you'll see the new policy and all of the adjustments in blue. I believe you have them in blue. In your packet and edits throughout this whole thing. Determining your security breaches, your notification requirements, your information security breach notification, your methods of notification, and so forth. These are state technology laws, and as they update them, we also have to update our policy with all of these. If we've got an opportunity, I'm not going to say this is the greatest reading material in the world. We do go through these. We go through these with our tech department and our policy service, and we bring these to you because they're required. So this is a required policy that needs to be in place for information security. The second policy, which is 5676, privacy and security for student data and teacher principal data. That's a new policy that has to be put in place as well. As you go through that, you'll see this talks about all of the different privacy laws in terms of student data that are required, security for student data, third-party contractors. We have to contract under Education Law 2D. We have to have a Parents' Bill of Rights, which we already have, that we're updating to put in here in terms of student and personal data. This is a big topic, obviously, as you've seen in terms of data security. It's even more important now. And it's just pages of different laws that we now need to be sure that we're aware of and that we follow in terms of our data protection. And the last policy is requirement 5681, school safety plans. You'll see our school safety plan policy from 2016 that's on top. These are the updated laws and changes in terms of our district-wide safety plans. You have already passed all of our safety plans. All of our building safety plans have been submitted into there. So everything you see in here has already been done here. This is the policy that coincides with all of the current rules in terms of implementing, approving, and submitting safety plans to our regional and state level authorities. So I can go back to 5672 and start with that one. Does anybody in looking through those in reading through those, have any questions or concerns about anything that's in there? Obviously, once we plug these in, we update this and the language and put it into our policy and update it on our online system. And we certainly could take another time to go through these and look at them if you want to. We can go to a second reading on those if you want to take some more time with them. But these will be required to be passed into our policy.
I'll put a motion out to waive the second reading of policy 5672.
Second.
Shauna first, Janine second, or I'm first, yeah. Motion to approve policy 5672. Janine first, Shauna second, all in favor?
Hold on a second. You just gotta go back. Finish your motion to waive the second reading first to get that vote.
I did.
Did you get everybody? 6-0?
Janine and then Shauna.
And then was it 6-0 to approve this waiving and second reading?
Yeah, I said all in favor.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry. I missed that. Okay. And then you motion to approve it too?
Yeah, I did that.
Okay, all right. I must have fallen
You
asleep.
sleeping?
I must have dozed off there. I missed that whole thing. I don't know. I thought we approved it before we waived the reading.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yep.
We don't have to add these for book anymore?
No, so these will be implemented and updated digitally right on your board policy section of the website. Yep. If anybody wants hard copies, I'll be more than happy to give those to them. But we keep the online version updated now, so everybody has access to it.
All right, motion to waive the second reading of policy 5676. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? Motion to approve policy 5676. Janine first, Shauna second, all in favor? All right, motion to approve the second reading of policy 5681.
Waive it.
I'm sorry, motion to waive the second reading of policy 5681. Jessica first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to approve policy 5681. Janine first, Peter second, all in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, school board vacancy. On the agenda again for the regulations. So is there anything more to discuss? If not, it'll sit here, and then after November 2nd, which will be the 90-day, that's when it's turned over to our district superintendent. So,
I still feel the same.
okay, so we'll keep it, and then after November 2nd, it'll be turned over to our district superintendent. Okay.
For possibly filling it, right?
Yeah, so
So
she'll,
Okay.
yeah, so what'll happen, I spoke with her about what would happen if it got to that point, for everybody in here. So she'll take it, she'll review it, she'll review all the circumstances around it, she'll review the current conditions that we're under right now, and then, sort of render a thought on where the board should proceed with that. So yeah, one of the things would be to appoint, one of the things would be to hold election, another option would be, depending on how she feels the situation is, it could stay as is for until.
She'll also understand or be told that the only thing that we disagreed on in the last 3 months is
Yeah.
filling the seat. Everything else is past 6-0.
Yep.
So, and I'm sure with this COVID stuff on, she's got more on her plate than worry about appointing.
Yep.
School board member for West Canada Valley.
What information is she using to make her decision?
So a lot of what he's saying there, just in terms of, when it occurred, that we went through the discussion here, and we've had, multiple months of discussing what we should do with this. Certainly, COVID is gonna play a big part in this. Budgets are gonna play a big part in this. You know, having another public election is gonna be part of it. The distance from the last election to now versus I mean, she could hold this thing for months and then render a decision. And then, at that point, it might be more prudent to have the open seat filled in May. That would be an option, that she could say. So there's a number of different things that could happen out of all of this. So, and the information on both sides and the thoughts on both sides are both valid, so, in terms of thought processes, so, Mr. Marco mentioned, certainly I don't think DSs have a lot on their plate like a lot of people do, and, if as long as things are legal in a way that we can manage it and do things, I think she'd support whatever we want to do with that, so.
Announcements, November 11th is Veterans Day observance, and then November 25th through the 27th is Thanksgiving recess. Our next board meeting is Monday, November 9th. So public.
Can I just mention one thing quick that's not on here? So a little bit creative. We have to dismiss 15 minutes early on November 9th and 10th for our mandatory evacuation drills. So for the high school, that's going to be 2 days because we got 2 different sets of kids. So we'll do one on the 9th, one on the 10th, 15 minutes early. And then the elementary we'll do on just the 1 day because we're able to dismiss those. So we'll dismiss the midday kids 15 minutes early and the end day kids 15 minutes early, just so you know that's going to happen. That's the only adjustment to that time.
Carson.
Just 2 things quick. Kelly, what are you hearing for budget cuts or anything that from Albany, anything?
They're still saying 20%, but they have not withheld anything from our September or October payment.
So nothing yet. They're just saying 20%. My other thing is, over here, they're fixing this creek over here. Did anybody come and ask permission to park their vehicles and stuff over there on our school property? Do we have a certificate of insurance with West Canada name in case somebody gets hurt over there?
That was part of the agreements that we signed. I'll double check it.
Make sure we got one on file.
Those
We
are
don't
the
need
county,
that
right?
going back.
The county.
And they'll also fix that property when they're done, like it was.
And that's the field that we rent to the Lindsay's, and I talked to them about, the fields talked to them about, they were okay with them using it.
Yeah, with the rain and everything, you're gonna start seeing some roots and stuff over there, and you see where they built the roadway and stuff down there. Just wanna make sure it's back to normal, and West Canada's not on the line, so we got a certificate of insurance with us named sitting in your file over there, not somebody saying that they got it. I'd like to see it in writing. Thank you.
All right, public comment. I know no one's here in public. Do any?
Let's see anything.
Nope, nothing. Okay.
Anybody watching?
Do we have any viewers tonight?
10?
10?
Thank you. All right, motion to adjourn. Shawna first. Carson second, all in favor?
Oh, I have one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.